Blessings. The topic today is from mineral springs in Pennsylvania to chemicals. The truth I discovered. And I do have some notes, so many things that I'm talking about these days. This has been sitting on my desk for a little while, and I can already feel my heart chakra, it's expanding, but yet there's some discomfort in this conversation, and it's something that I'm extremely passionate about is water. And this came about. It's a lot of stories and a long journey, but if you're a water advocate, if you're somebody that is in new earth leadership mode, somebody that understands that how we treat the earth matters and how we work with building businesses matter, then this might be an interesting dive for you to listen to. I'm definitely outside the box. I take a lot of time with not only how I've healed my wounds from childhood abuse and ancestral generational lineages, but I've taken a lot of time to understand why things happen or why the Divine Mother would put me in situations to hear conversations, to hear different facts, why. And it's led me to this moment. There's so many stories I could share about corruption with water. And I think why my heart is a little heavy doing this video is I know that if I don't do this video, I don't think anybody else is. And I don't know if anybody's going to watch this video or even care about what I'm saying, but I know that I need to say it. And I think that that's why my heart is sort of racing right now, because when you know as much as I know, and when you've heard and seen as much as I've seen, not just in healing, but also in the underground world of water corruption, it's it's challenging. It's challenging to try to inspire others to step into being an advocate, step into educating, step into a movement. But today I'm going to share some things that might stir the pot, might open some dialogue for yourself, your home, your business, your environment. And if I do that, then it was worth the time sitting here with my notes and sharing it. So here I go. For roughly 15 years now, I've been working with a Japanese medical device that produces 7 different types of water that has a lot of PubMed research. I've also been working with clean water filtration systems because you need clean water, specifically in the United States, in order to create electrolyzed reduced water. Years ago, I studied Japan's hospitals and were fascinated with how they used 7 types of waters to create an equilibrium in healing the body. See, they didn't go quick to the surgeries or the pills. And this fascinates me because Japan has been #1 in healthcare. They've been #1 in longevity and #1 in wound care. So you ask yourself, what are they doing differently that we're not doing in the United States? And one of those things was their education on these different types of waters that are created through their medical device that's been in their medical hospitals for over, I think, 64 years now. Being a professional dancer, you train off the best. You don't go to the average, you train and you study off the best masters. In any field that you're in, this is what you do to become the best. And I think Japan is definitely they have sacred water. They have regulations in areas of their pockets that you cannot put any chemicals or anything into their springs. What can we learn from them? How do we heal Pennsylvania land and water? I don't know. I'm moving. So I hand that off to somebody, maybe a young soul who's listens to this video and becomes inspired, I encourage you to take on the challenge of how do we heal the land? How do we heal the people who own the land and don't seem to respect it? So for me, it wasn't a coincidence as the Divine Mother was showing me different corruption and different hardcore corruption, murder corruption in the state of PA. And then I came upon, you know, the literature that's hidden about these sacred mineral springs located about 45 minutes away from where I live. Now there's some basic information online and you can go there and see the waterfall, which doesn't really exist now. But the actual pamphlet with all the history, you'd have to go into that area. They have offices for parks, state parks, and you'd have to ask the question because it's not in the front brochures. You have to ask questions. And that's what I did. And that's how I got the pamphlet. And that's how I learned a little bit more about what we're not being taught in his story. Because what are we learning in history books? I mean, we're learning from, in my perspective, a lot of times the predator's point of view. We're not learning from the victim's point of view. Hence, transcending victim to goddess part 1. So why isn't this shared in Pennsylvania, his story? Well, first of all, water is divinely feminine. We're mostly made of water. This is a Mother Earth. Do you understand? What does that mean to you when you hear the word Mother Earth? It wasn't titled Father Earth. It was titled Mother Earth for a specific reason. It's a feminine planet with an incredible amount of water. We're mostly made of water. Water is sacred. So how we are treating water, and we have to be responsible for the collective as well and the community as well. If we're not educating, if we're not speaking on these things, then the opposite, the darkness can come in, which is what has happened and taken over the water, depleted the water, poisoned the water, corrupted the water. And I've seen every angle from the high spiritual world saying, I pray over the water's clean, it's holy. And I don't mean any disrespect. I've seen a lot of those people pass away with cancers because probably they had traumas from childhood abuse or generational ancestral trauma, which makes you extremely acidic, which you need a high grade water, at least clean water, let alone electrolyzed reduced water, to have the high frequency to pray over the water and change the water. Teachings. So when I started to learn about these healing waters and how the native, the people were living and communing with the waters and probably had protocols, they were invaded. Very much like what's been going on in the United States, and very much like why I think the right and left politically are coming together as the people. And they're really upset with the government because they don't want any more wars. They don't want to go over onto somebody else's territory for any other reason, because we have problems in our own territory. And I think the movement of the right and left coming together as one is a very good thing right now. We need to set aside certain issues and come together with the big issues. Don't hurt children and don't tax us, and definitely don't put that money into war. It's all interrelated. Childhood abuse, trauma, the predators writing the books, people not understanding how they can step into advocacy. not utilizing their skills. You don't have to be a healer. You could be a plumber and really make a big difference right now in your state by incorporating the best technologies, which I would love to be in that conversation and debate, right? Because when you grow up and when you're a professional dancer and a world record holder and you've mastered something, you work with the best. If I had found better, I would use better. I work with the best because I actually love myself to that highest that I'm going to get the best for myself. I'm going to get the best food, even if it's not at the grocery store. I'm going to drink the best water, even if it's not popular in my community. And so if you've jumped on this video, you might be one of those people that everyone around you just complains or they just do what everybody else does and you're not. Welcome. You've joined the right channel, Heather Ann Ferry, because I've taken the road less traveled and it's been a long road. And I'm happy to hand the baton off to you because we need a lot more people speaking about this subject matter. So who invaded that land? Was it Germany? There's a lot of pretty in your face signs about that. Just even how they labeled the mineral waters after that is pretty much a sign of Germany. And I'm not telling you everything because I like people to do their research and ask questions and engage with me. That's the type of teacher I am. So I'm not going to give you all the answers today, but I'm going to plant seeds. So it's pretty in your face who came over here and invaded us. But when you start to research the names, what did they do with that land in the state of PA? Well, they built a huge resort, which if you go on my Facebook page, Heather Ann Ferry, I do a lot of posts trying to initiate conversation with you, the reader. And you'll see the whole resort. It was pretty big. People from all over the world, the elite, stayed at this Pennsylvania resort for the healing waters that no one talks about in his story. Why is that? We just covering up what's been going on in the United States? Invaded by whom? And now we have people in our government that want to invade other places for what? And what I feel in the pulse right now is that the American people born here, proud here, are fed up. And sometimes you've got to set certain issues aside, right and left, to come together and say, what are we going to do? Because we seem to have a specific group of energy that keeps lying to us on each side, and now they're just totally out of control. I mean, completely out of control. We had, one president that had dementia or Alzheimer's. Now we have another president that has dementia or Alzheimer's. Strange. So we're going to focus on that. I mean, we have been lied to enough. And we all need to find our tribes, find our communities, and really we really understand teamwork, really understand New Earth leadership as well. Not everybody's going to be a New Earth leader. You have to understand what you're creating that is new, that isn't the same old cycles. And the issue that I really realized looking back at my 15 years of water advocacy, and especially in the state of PA, is unfortunately, the women here are repressed, a lot of them, and the ones that are empowered leave, from my point of view. And the men who have some serious money and ownership don't care. That's my perspective. If you disagree, come on my channel and let's have a conversation about what you're actually doing. Not talking, doing. Because I've heard a lot of men in my city talk a good game. But the thing about having a lot of money is it can be so comfortable that it makes you, it for these men, they just like, well, I have lots of money, so I don't really need to work on my childhood abuse. I don't really need to get to the next highest level to be a new earth leader. I can just kind of sit back and just, that's where they're at. And if you're on here and I'm triggering you, that's the Divine Mother. I'm not triggering you. I'm speaking through the Divine Mother right now. So you die with what? I'm not saying we all have to do these great things. We can be good human beings and that's enough. But if you're given a lot of resources and you're just sitting back and letting all of this happen, waiting for one person to save the country or save your state, boy, that seems selfish. Because I take living on earth as sacred. I take the water as sacred. And a lot of people have judged me here for my passion for it, at my times of getting upset for it. Oh, well, I'm still here. I'm healthy. I'm going to continue to talk, and I am going to leave the state of PA. So when we talk about not understanding the truth of people being murdered, taken off their land, and other people invading it, creating a fancy resort where everyone around the world who's elite can come, what these elite people did is they started bottling the water in a glass, which is a healthy thing to do. I teach people carry everything in a glass or stainless steel. But they were selling it. And it's listed. There's a medical journal citing all the healing properties of the water. So I'm not making this up. This isn't a conspiracy. And then if you notate and start studying the particular characters, they're influenced in the government in medical science. That's a problem right there, because we don't use in our hospitals Japanese medical devices that have 7 different types of waters that do 7 different types of jobs that Japan has been using for over 60 years. You know, we have very serious issues in diabetes right now. And I know because my father had diabetes, one of the best, highest ranking is using the formulas of this water. Now you need clean water in the United States, and we'll get into that in a minute of why. So you can't just buy one thing. You have to work with 2 different companies. We can't be lazy in the United States anymore. We can't expect one person to fix it all. And we need to now learn all this stuff on our own in order to what? In order to become higher conscious, so we can become higher conscious leaders in our household as parents, so we can become higher conscious leaders in our workplace, so we can become higher conscious leaders in the way we choose to build things or products. So that corruption started there. And I'm convinced it never left. And of course, it's gotten worse because if you go to the grocery store or you go online, you see all the plastic things being sold. It is a huge billion-trillion-dollar market. And I don't care if somebody's invented a way to replace plastic. I hope they do and we use it. We need to stop plastic, at least in that category. It's not necessary. Let's fix the problem and let's not continue to create the problem. So I've seen, oh gosh, 15 healing centers in the last, whatever, decade close. Some of them were financial, very smart marketing wise, but greedy landlords. I've seen, they're all gone. They're going to go to another state or another part of the world that appreciates higher consciousness. I think of states as energy. And whatever state the Divine Mother is choosing to place me in next, that state, I believe, will become very wealthy. You might think that's arrogant. I don't care. I think it's arrogant to ignore all the free talks I've done in Pittsburgh. Even people, I've flown people out of state to come in and test bottled waters, any water, refrigerator water, your filter water, to show you, not through, oh, is it acidic, but through ORP, oxygen. You want your water to be alive. You want it to have oxygen. Just like these healing waters, you would go into the water and it would start to heal you and regenerate you, because that's what Mother Earth was about, until who started to rape her, disrespect her, became a virus. So I'm speaking on behalf of her. I even had private conversations years ago, and I didn't even really know how powerful he was, but Gerald Pollack, he's groundbreaking on the fourth phase of water. And I was telling him the experiments I was doing, and he was, this is an academic person. And he was like, keep doing it. You're on to something. He couldn't refer one machine over another because that would interfere in his water research and grant writing, which I totally understood. But you get the back end scoop when you're having, that intimacy, because I was with a Western doctor who joined my team. But here's the thing is, she couldn't get the movement going on in the state of PA either, because marijuana became the big push and people need to make money. And so a lot of the practitioners jumped on board with that to make money, to pay their electric bills, to pay their car payment, while I continued to venture into the water advocacy alone, not making, very little commission. I mean, it's not like, it's not like my coaching career, but I did it because of the Divine Mother and because of my respect for Mother Earth. But it was disheartening. I understood that people, but that's where the movement became. And then everyone was on marijuana. And honestly, then we started hearing the research against that, which a lot of people, don't understand, but I saw it because I was around people who had been on marijuana and they just don't remember stuff. Like they're just that I worked in an Alzheimer's unit for 8 years. So, I just didn't see them as actively present. I saw it as a Band-Aid. Medical meditations, there's a free 9-part video series playlist that started yesterday or Monday on breath work. Get a notebook out, learn the basics. By the time you get to video 8 and 9, you start really getting somewhere. It's not a quick fix though. You actually have to go in and spend time with your breath. You can't check out. I've been around a lot of that. So I until I see something of a positive result, I can only speak about my experiences. So a big marijuana movement came in to our state as medicine, but the medicine that was recorded originally was taken away of. It was sold. And now it's sold in plastic, not even glass. Like only the fancy. But why are you going to spend that much money, add that up and you've got yourself a system, water system, like the one that I have in my kitchen. So the question I started to ask myself, because I know that my soul lives on forever, and I know every action and word matters in my life because I'm higher conscious. It's not just a statement. It's actually in what I do in my life and how I live in my life. Is why how did we get to this point where we're so far away from what we had that was so beautiful? And are we ever going to get it back? I don't know. I know, having channeled Mother Mary and the Divine Mother, they're mothers. They'll reprimand you. Like you do something wrong, they're not going to be like, "Oh, it's okay." Like it's like, okay, you've raped Mother Earth for a long time now. I mean, we could throw some hurricanes, fires, this and that. What are we going to do? What's it going to take to wake you up? Cancer? Losing a bunch of people in your life? What's it going to take? How are you going to wake up? That's what they do. And so I want to share a story. A few years back, I went to Bedford Springs. You can look it up. Bedford Springs Resort in Pennsylvania. It's about 2 hours away from Pittsburgh. It's very well known. It's a fancy resort. Back in the history, the government people used to go there on vacation. And they had mineral water, mineral springs that you could swim in, and it was healing. And so I wanted to see that and experience that. But I still went with my Japanese device because I was detoxing. And when you have as much generational trauma and childhood abuse as I do, like I understand how it works. Like I have to keep my body alkaline. So I put it in luggage. I drove there and got into the hotel. It was beautiful. I was in the newer part, which I think was better because I am so in tune with land and energy. I didn't have to get so many downloads from his story. There was a coldness to the environment. I will say that. The nature around it was pristine. The land was still rich, not as chemicalized as where I'm at. And as soon as I got settled, got to maintenance guys to hook up my device. I said, "Can you hook it up in the bathroom sink?" And they're like, "Well, we can't do that, but we can hook it up in the employee's kitchen." And it was this like secret passage that I was going down. And now I'm in the employee's kitchen. I'm sitting there as they hook it up, and they're skilled. They knew how to hook it up fast. And they were asking me about it. They were curious. And I was telling them why I was drinking this water and healing, from brain damage and, genetic red blood cell disorder. And they shared with me, those waters in the pool are not the ionized mineral waters they used to be, that. And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, there's chemicals now. We have to put chemicals in it. I'm like, you have to put chemicals in the water? And they're like, yeah, the politicians regulated that in the state of PA. It's mandatory. They said you'd be healthier to go across the street into the river and swim in there. And I was like, wow. So the politicians made these rules to destroy the healing waters in the state of PA. And so now you pay for poison. What gave them the health education background to do that? And why isn't anybody talking about it? How is chlorine and all these other chemicals become the go-to for swimming water? I showed a very wealthy man a 3-minute video on how much chlorine we absorb when we shower with a filter that doesn't have proper what that filter properly needs. And his mouth dropped. And he was a plumber, like, and had a plumbing education. No clue. That's scary. So I'm going to tell you another story. It was recently. And I'm not going to name the business for protection reasons, but I went to do some cold plunges. Cold showers were very common for me as a yogi back in the day. So I went to this place. I love cold plunges. It's great. The problem is, guess what? They have to, by regulation, put toxic chemicals and chlorine in the water. And it's a small tank. So you're going to absorb those chemicals fast. And it's going to take a lot of days and a lot of water to detox that. And so I went through the experiment of it, being as cleaned out as I am. I loved the cold plunge, but I could smell the chemicals when I got out. And I was like, how do people do this? Do they even smell it? And after that, so I'm not doing that anymore. I've been detoxing through peeing. I can smell the chemicals coming out. I can see the chemicals, some of it coming out. Because I'm so clean, because I've been detoxing for 4 years now, like in immaculate. Really, you know. So if I didn't know how to do that, those chemicals stay in you. They form fat cells, they're in the organs, they affect your neurological system. So unfortunately, something that is good, a cold plunge, is now, in my view, not so good for the consumer because they're not going home and drinking the best electrolyte reduced water on the market. They're not going home and understanding that how much just got absorbed into their colon. And this is because of the politicians regulating this because they know what? It's all interconnected. And yes, I can move and eventually create my own healing center in my house and do my own thing. But I also have to live in a community. And if that community is sick all the time or lower conscious all the time, how is anything going to be rebuilt to a higher advanced level? There are so many plumbers in my city, men, that know about this and would agree with me and have agreed with me, but they do nothing because it's too hard to change. It's too hard to step outside of what you already know and do all day long. Or something else, please explain it to me. Come on my channel. You're more than welcome. I'd love to know your perspective of why you don't initiate coming into at least the clean water. I'm going to leave on a positive note. But before I do, yes, here's my first sponsor. Every leader has a strategy, but the greatest leaders, the ones who build families, companies, and future legacies, they all share one thing in common. They protect their energy. And nothing protects your energy more than the quality of water you drink every single day. This is not just about hydration. This is medicine in the nervous system, in the brain, in the body, in the movement, in your writing, in your decisions, in your communication. Clean water, it's the first step in regulating your body and expanding your leadership capacity. That's why I've partnered with MultiPure. Their filtration systems remove 80 plus contaminants, and yes, those forever chemicals, the things that impact our focus, our hormones, our energy, and our long-term health. Oh, I've tried so many filters over the years, and this one was a game changer. I lost 25 pounds and my skin continues to anti-age. If you're ready to upgrade your water, whether it's in the kitchen, your shower unit, a home unit, or even better, your employee's kitchen, use my community code 436409 at checkout for 5% off your first purchase. That's 436409. It's a small discount, but a powerful investment in you, possibly your family, your community, your employees, and your leadership. A little note, self-love action. Every morning I wake up, I drink 2 glasses of multi-pure water before I grab my favorite organic coffee. Okay, so my positive story to end this from mineral springs to in Pennsylvania to chemicals, the truth I discovered, is I would say at least 5 years ago, and I'm inspiring those who feel like, you feel the same way. I'm inspiring you to take the torch, to take this information, to start doing something. I think the young minds, I mean, I'm not computer savvy. If I was, I'm sure I could do a lot more. If you want to help and you are computer savvy, and I mean really computer savvy, I'll give you some tasks to do. But I hope this inspires you. But so at least 5 years ago, I went to a local park that I don't usually go to very often. It's where my maternal grandmother grew up in. And I think there's a part of me that was resisting that land. We used to have picnics there. And I was walking around and they had these big vendor machines of all types of plastic products. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Now they're just in the middle of our parks. Like, where are the water fountains? Like, this is wow. So I took pictures and I did a Facebook because I know Facebook is mostly, I think, my Pittsburgh crowd. And I just talked about it. Like, why are we funding this? Like, when does this stop? Like, there's plastic bottles everywhere on the sides. Like, do you think that that doesn't affect the animals and the trees and the soil that we can't even grow healthy food because the land in PA, there's a lot of clay now. It's hard. It's angry. Maybe like the people who were murdered and nobody cared about to talk about the truth of that story. Some sort of battle, but we'll switch it around, but that somehow it was good when it wasn't good. We were invaded. And people who were arrogant took that water and made it for their own profits and their own well, if you are rich enough, you can come into this resort. I went back to that park in the last couple months, and there were no vendor machines. And there was a really cool, almost looked like a European water fountain. The only issue is what? It's a great movement for no plastic. It's a great movement for filling up your water and having it, and for kids to be exposed to that, but there's no filter. They need a multi-pure filter. And if you're on this channel, you listen to the sponsor, take action. But with that, then you're providing the community and you're saying, I love my community. So I recommend adding a very simple, cost-effective filter. And you've already saved a ton of money, because those vendor machines, I don't know how much money you make off it. And this is the thing too. New Earth Leaders, stock market, all these all these the bottles, they got to be making somebody a lot of money. Just is. So what do? You know, there's a lot more stories. The stories that I have are dark, unfortunately. They're very dark. I've heard a lot of dark stories. I know of a lot of dark stories personally, because in some ways, my healing room, I realize now, has been a confession room. People have confessed things to me. I just didn't realize it 15 years ago, what people were doing, because I'm not in a church. I'm a trauma expert. People are coming in to do brain protocols. Some people didn't do them because they didn't want to do the work. They didn't want to fix their karmas. They didn't understand yet the consequences of that. And that's okay. They'll decide to do that maybe in the next life or wherever realm they go to. But when you are a higher conscious teacher, there is consequences to bad actions. You have to fix them and you have to clean them up. And usually when it's stealing, millions of dollars and killing people, yeah, there's consequences to that. And I'm here to say those people tend to be the ones on the platforms. And we need to switch that up. And we need to ask ourselves, do we have dyslexia that we have so many people that have been on platforms and funded that were actually predators? Well, his story tells a lot about the predator's point of view. Maybe it's a little bit time for the victim's point of view. I'll leave you with that. You can get my book on Amazon. It supports me. It supports this channel, Heather Ann Ferry. That's all I got today. Thank you for listening to something that is very, very dear to my heart. And I wish you many blessings.